past, but with an exemption for incinerators.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about, number one question, about the characteristics, or as much as you can, about Macomb County and why it might be particularly vulnerable or to this kind of technology and this kind of movement towards being sold a bill of goods on the new incinerator?
In the case of Macomb County, why they're so vulnerable on this is because what has happened is that there are a few very, very dedicated members of the Macomb County Commission who are strongly opposed to the expansion of the landfill, and they've invested, politically, they've invested themselves in opposing the expansion of the landfill, and have done so for a number of years. And what the particular point is that in Michigan, when you site a landfill, you have to have what's called a community host agreement. And you can have a community host agreement for the city or township that the landfill is located in, and you can also have a host agreement for the county. And that oftentimes what's part of that host agreement is some kind of compensation, some might call it a bribe, to the city or township or to the county. So for example, just to point out how far this goes, in the case of Sumter Township in southwest Wayne County, where the Carlton Farms landfill is, that takes the incinerator ash from the Detroit incinerator, Sumter Township, over 60% of the township's budget is dependent upon the community host fee that it receives from the Carlton Farms landfill. And at a hearing for an expansion of that particular landfill, the city, or I should say the township treasurer, testified to that fact that they wanted the expansion because the township was dependent upon the fees from the landfill in order for the township to even function. And so, I've referred to it as being hooked on trash. So essentially you had a township coming and, well, I also compare it to, being addicted to cocaine. It's like, here you have someone who's coming and pleading to the police officer to allow their pusher to continue to sell them their drug because they're dependent upon it. So in the case of Macomb County, what has happened is that there's this community host agreement, and these commissioners who are very dedicated to try and deal with this landfill have tried to get some kind of deal that restricts the amount of Canadian trash coming in. And it has held up this community host agreement, the county level community host agreement, for a number of years. And Waste Management, the company who runs the Pine Tree Acres landfill, is getting very impatient with not having this finalized community host agreement because they want to start construction on the expansion of the landfill. So they're pressuring the county heavily for this, and so the county commissioners who are opposed to this and have invested themselves politically into being opposed to it are now under extreme pressure to figure out a solution. And so now in steps this other company that says, we can sell you something to deal with this. And so they basically want to try and give these convince these county commissioners that they have a new political alternative to dealing with the pressure cooker that they've created for themselves.
Well, what you're talking